Women doctors, we hear you. We know your struggles. We know what it's like to be a female doctor in this dominant world. And guess what? Dr. Summer Casmel and myself teamed up together and created Women Dentists Connect. We wanted to create a safe, educational, and inspirational place to come and ask those crazy questions that you don't want to ask. We know that being a female doctor is different than it is for male doctors. You just have different issues, different questions, different concerns. So Dr. Summer Casmel and I are actually hosting a live event in beautiful Scottsdale, Arizona on October 11th and 12th. This is for women doctors and their teams. We're talking business. We're talking issues that female doctors face. We're talking team breakouts, how to really rally your team. And we're giving you hundreds of tangibles that you can take home and implement Monday morning. We're also having an amazing lineup of speakers where you'll actually get CE for attending. So come on in. We can't wait to see you. We only have a handful of people that we're allowing in. So run on over to womendentistsconnect.com. Use the coupon code podcast to get the Dental 18 family coupon. Guys, I cannot wait. I would love to see you there. I'd love to connect with you, learn from you, and share. So hop on over Women Dentists Connect. I can't wait to see you in October. Hey everyone, welcome to the Dental 18 podcast. We're your hosts, Kiera Dent
and Dr. Mark Costas.
Mark and I had this crazy idea that maybe we could combine a dentist and a team member's perspective because let's face it, dentistry can be a challenging profession with those two perspectives. And Dental 18 podcast was created.
I'm a practicing dentist, a multiple practice owner, a dental performance coach, and the founder of the Dental Success Institute.
I've been a dental assistant, treatment coordinator, scheduler, biller, office manager, current practice owner, and international dental consultant. Mark and I don't just understand you, we are you.
Our goal is to positively impact the world of dentistry by sharing our lessons learned from the road in hundreds of dental offices.
Two perspectives, one mission, to help dental professionals reach their full potential. Welcome to the Dental 18 podcast. Hello, Dental 18 listeners. This is Kiera Dent. And you guys, it's a great day because we have Lauren with us again to talk about marketing. You guys all know marketing is my Achilles heel. It's the area I don't feel completely confident in. And Lauren is so kind and she keeps coming on the podcast to give me more and more tips. So Lauren, how are you today?
I'm good. Thanks. Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. And you guys, of course, Lauren and I, she's like sneaking around her house not to wake up her kids. So early morning podcasting with Lauren, it's always a pleasure. So thank you.
Yeah, of course. I know I have to hide from them. I'm actually in our playroom right now, hiding just so nobody comes downstairs.
I don't know if it's because Kaylee and I just went to Harry Potter Land and I watched all 7 Harry Potter movies, but I'm like envisioning you as Harry Potter under the stairs, just hanging out so your kids don't find you. I love it.
Yeah, I do. I feel like that sometimes.
Like, don't wake up, kiddos. It's summertime. So
totally. Yeah, our little one's 2.5 and he's just like as sneaky as can be. So he will find you for sure. And make sure to make as much noise as possible.
So stay asleep for a little bit, kiddos. We're going to talk marketing this morning.
Totally.
Awesome. All right. So we have talked about, if you guys have missed any of Lauren's episodes, be sure to go back to them. We've talked about how to work with your marketing team as an office, which was super helpful. We actually, as soon as we get off this podcast, Lauren and I are having our marketing meeting. So I implemented that. You guys, I was not doing that with Lauren. We've also talked on other podcasts of things you can do on your website. She's got some great ideas of how to hire a photographer that's a very cheap person and coach them. You can also, we talked about social media's do's and don'ts. So she's been a wealth of knowledge. And today, Lauren, we're going into some really cool marketing topics that I'm excited about. So kind of lead the way. I know that you had a few different topics to go over this morning. So let's just dive right in.
Yeah, of course. And, marketing is just kind of one of those things where you try something and see if it works. And if it doesn't work, you pull it back. And we kind of talked about that in the previous episodes. But, my goal is just always to provide as much implementable pieces of information that don't require a full overhaul in your marketing department. It just requires maybe a different set of communication tools with your marketing team or kind of just freshening things up. So that's kind of, the space that I'm coming from. No big pitch or anything like that. And I think, for most of the dentists that I've worked with, I always hear that there's a lot of skepticism around marketers. And
I'm guilty.
Yeah. And, and as in the dental field, right? Like a lot of people come to the dentist, like skeptical of going to the dentist. So, again, today is just kind of all about just kind of rehashing some of the things that we've talked about, but also finding ways that you can tweak what you're currently doing and maybe figure out, a different way. So, one of the things that I think is super interesting that you talk about in your hiring course, this is kind of a funny story. So I hired a new employee recently. It did not work out, and it didn't work out. It kind of crashed and burned really quickly. And Kiera was teasing me. She goes, "Lauren, you didn't take my hiring course, And I obviously have access to the content since we're working together, but I didn't take it. And so I went back and took it after, things didn't work out. And you talk a lot about in that course, you talk a lot about that, finding your avatar and figuring out who the person is that you're, connecting with the most, that is the right fit. And so in dentistry, it's like, who's your ideal patient, right?
Yeah.
So, I think, I talk with dentists a lot about, who their ideal patient is, who do they want sitting in their chair. And sometimes that's the, implant cases and specialty services. And other times we want to figure out who is the person that's making the household decisions, right? So if your practice is, in a larger, metro area or even a more rural area, who's, the person that's typically calling in the most. You can find a lot of that information on your Google Analytics, even your Facebook profile analytics, your Instagram analytics. But taking a look at that information, kind of figuring out, is it more men? Is it more women? What's kind of the age range that's more dominant? And really speaking to that person and kind of doubling down to that audience in your messaging and just the way things are looking when you're producing, marketing content. So
I will be honest, I never looked at analytics, never once. I didn't even know what these things were. I didn't know they existed. I just thought, just post content and just blast the masses. And I literally had no idea. When I was hiring, I would speak to the person I wanted, but I didn't connect that to marketing. And so I would strongly advise you guys, if you have not looked into your analytics, Google Analytics will tell you so much. And your Facebook and your Instagram, those analytics really do track. It's kind of creepy how much information we can get on people. But the reality is, if we're trying to get certain people, why not use the tools and resources that Google, Facebook, and Instagram have creepily already put into place for you? Like, just go for it, because they're the ones doing the creepy work for you. And all you need to do is just hone through it. So, Lauren, what are some of the things you look for on the analytics? Like, for this naive girl you have on the other line, how would you break that down of really what you're looking for in those analytic reports that you see all the time?
Yeah. So, just the demographic information is plenty of data to be, do some damage with. So if you're to choose, the gender and kind of the age range of the person that is most frequently visiting your website and target some messaging towards them, in even your Google ads, right? So, if you know that the person that is, most often calling your practice or visiting your website is a mom in her 40s, right? Because typically that's somebody that's making a decision for Invisalign or braces for their preteens, or somebody that, has little ones that they're trying to kind of find a family dentist for, or they're booking the appointment for their husband who's left for work for the day and just can't make the phone call during the day. Whatever the situation is, if that's your avatar, then I would say for sure market to that person. And don't be afraid to do really simple case studies, right? So I see a lot of, and this is again like kind of a social media tip, right? But I see a lot of practices who are doing a really great job of, asking for feedback. So, people might not want to post in the comments, but feel free to DM us. We would love to know, what type of marketing you connect with most. Do you like, just simple questions like, do you like clean and simple lines? Do you like lots of information? Do you like, what are you drawn to more? Maybe give them some examples, that kind of stuff. So, so don't be afraid to put together a ton of content. geared around, case studies for that person who's going to be your avatar, and really be able to hone in on like postcard design and things like that.
That's super helpful. And I'm going to just ask a selfish question because I want to know, are there certain colors? Because obviously dental is like blue and you see blue everywhere. But what are some colors? Are there, because I'm super intrigued by, they say certain
the
colors.
Psychology.
Yes. Like, so what do you use? What certain, like, have you found anything in that? If you're trying to, let's say you're going for, people like Lauren, you're fantastic. You're a mom. You are in California. I'm guessing you make the bulk of the decisions for your children and where they're going to the dentist. So is there any psychology if you're trying to target women versus men and different colors you should use, or in general? Have you found anything with the coloring? Because I'm just intrigued by the psychology behind that.
Yeah. So there is a whole bunch of study on like the psychology of color in marketing. And so there's a lot of information around that. Like people say, red's a stop color. And I think that's why dentistry, in the medical professions use blue so much, trying to sort of attract a calmness from someone instead of, fear. So there's definitely for sure some psychology around color. And, if you have a logo that you've already done and you're already kind of married to your colors, that's okay. But I always think in design for anything, like less is more. And so we tend to, we really tend to overdo it a lot of times in our marketing pieces and, crowd a postcard with just a ton of information. It's like so many photos and words crammed into like one tiny space. And I think the more intentional you can be with your verbiage and clean and concise, and you can pull out a lot of that stuff and make a really attractive piece, even using that white space. So I always think of like my avatar in a lot of ways for a lot of my clients is like Joanna Gaines, right? So if you guys know Chip and Jo, they have like such a cute style, and it's really clean, it's simple, it's not very busy. And I always think of that when I'm, putting together a postcard or a social media graphic or something. You don't want to overclutter things with, lots of icons and logos, and just, really simplify and draw somebody in so that they do want to read the text that's there, as opposed to being distracted by, loud images. And so that's just one school of thought on how to design things. There's a lot of teachings out there for dentists on imagery and graphic design that is the other opposite school of thought, which is put everything in there and give them lots of credentials and lots of testimonials, and that's okay too. But you just have to kind of know who your audience is, and then cater to that. And it's okay to A/B test too. It's like you might want to do a postcard run and do, the busy full postcard, and then A/B test, use a tracking phone number. A/B test is something that's really simple, clean, has a clear message, almost like a billboard, and see which one, drives the most phone calls. I mean, that's a really good way to do it. So,
okay. So let's dive a little bit more into postcards, because there's like this hot topic on postcards. I get asked when I do one-on-one coaching with clients, and they say, Kiera, should we do postcards? Should we not do postcards? And the bottom line is, what I've heard is postcards are great for exposure. And, I've been listening to a lot of different, we're going to plug Tony Robbins again, because why not? Every podcast is Tony Robbins plug. But they were talking about marketing the other day, and they said that in the past, and I could be totally misquoting this, so I should fact check myself. But it used to be in the past, somebody would need to be exposed about 5 times to a marketing piece before they would actually buy, or they'd go to somebody. And he said now it's like 14 to 20 times they have to be exposed. Have you heard this, Lauren? Is this true?
I was going to say it's more like 16 times. Totally. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's a lot. That's a huge difference. And so people have told me, because let's be real, I started coaching startup practice. I didn't really know what I was doing. And I warned them before we started coaching as clients. I've been with them for almost 2 years. So it's been really good to test. We got burned on postcards. It was a startup practice. We didn't have a ton of money in the budget. And so we put them onto postcards. And it was kind of funny because the only call we got off the postcard was when the guy was dropping them off at the post office. one of the postcards, there were a few postcards he had extra that they wouldn't mail out. And so he decided to just go stick them in people's windows in the post office parking lot. And the only call we got off of our postcard was from some lady who the postcard got stuck in her windshield wiper and it actually broke her windshield wiper. And so she called to say we owed her money for breaking her windshield. And the guy was really clever. And he said, oh, that marketing team, like, don't you worry, I'll fire them and I'll get rid of them. And it was him. So that was the only call we got off that postcard. So of course I felt
an expensive mistake, right?
like, oops, we definitely botched it. I mean, we tried so many things. He walked around hand delivering postcards. He would stick them in people's doors. If they happened to have their door open early in the morning, he would like slip it into their house. We were like going hardcore on these postcards. So I feel a little scared that we didn't get any calls back on it. So we just aborted the mission and said, no more postcards. But I don't think that that's necessarily right, especially learning that you need 16 points of contact. But what are your thoughts on postcards? How do people do these postcards? And what are some tips? Because postcards, I feel, as much as I get them in the mail and toss them, I still think there's a place from a lot of other people that I've talked to. What are your thoughts on postcards?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously I run a digital agency, so I believe in online completely. However, that said, I do work with a lot of clients who do postcard, mailings and are very successful with it. So I think, I love that you brought that up because the 16 touch points or 20 touch points or whatever it takes to get somebody to take action, if they're your target audience, right?
Exactly.
You do have to spread out your reach in different ways, right? So I kind of think of like Google AdWords, for example. That's where you place your ads when somebody has an emergency or a pain, right? Because they're not going to sit around on Facebook and ask their friends, or maybe they will. But they're, certainly going to go to Google first to try, if there's a major pain, to try to find a dentist that's open now, or dentist near me, or, that kind of stuff. So, if there's something, of an urgent need, that's the place to be, right? With postcards, it's a little bit different because, I think there's still totally a place for print marketing. I don't love magazine advertisements for dentists. I think those, don't drive a lot of leads unless you're shooting for branding. I think that's a branding piece. But for postcards, I think it's two things. You're still getting the brand identity touch point, right? Because they don't have to open anything. It's not like a letter. They are still getting the impression of your brand. But also people tend to put those in a drawer and wait until they need them, right? So it may not be an immediate need or an immediate, return on investment, but that's more of a long-term end game where there's consistency, there's frequency, there's, there's a strategy around that. So dropping one batch of postcards probably won't generate a ton of phone calls right off the bat.
Unless it's one broken windshield, guys. If you guys just go for the windshield wipers, you'll get lots of calls. So there's your tip. Yeah.
And like the market has a lot to do with it too. Some of the rural areas have a real hard time with postcards, but in busier metro area, there's more houses there. So you get to, get exposure to more people, so you get better results. So I personally do like postcards to be in the mix, because I think a lot of people will get that postcard and they just go to your website or they go to Google, and the digital agency will get credit for it because maybe they didn't call on the phone number that's on the postcard. Right, exactly. But then the digital agency will go, yeah, we got to call off of your Google ads. So I think it all kind of works together, and it's just like, with bigger businesses, it's like TV and radio and billboards, they all work together, but you never really know where it's coming from.
Right, exactly. It's just, okay. And that's the marketing vortex. I feel like it's sucked into which one's really working. So you guys, postcards, I have heard, I was at an event with Scott Luna, and I do feel Scott Luna has so many great ideas. And he talked about postcards, and he said, you should be having cross-pollination. So he said, make 4 different styles, kind of like you were talking about, Lauren, and then you'll try them out in different neighborhoods, different demographics with different design styles. So that was his advice. And I really liked that cross-pollination approach. And then also, I reached out to some of my brilliant friends who I don't know this stuff, you guys. And so I reached out to some really fantastic friends who do really well. And both of them, they do live on the West Coast. So if you're East Coasters, this person I know has worked with some East Coast offices as well. But his name is Travis Russell in Medford. He doesn't even know I'm recommending him. I don't even think he knows who I am. But Travis Russell in Medford, Oregon, I have heard is phenomenal with postcards. So if you guys are looking for somebody with postcards, you're wanting to get into it, I have heard phenomenal reviews. Now, if you try him out, don't like him, please let me know, because I want to make sure we're giving really good people for you to research. But this is somebody, I have a friend who uses this guy, and I worked with him for he was Justin Schmidt. He was the reason I even got into this whole shenanigans with Mark Costas. But Justin used him for several years. And when I first met Justin, he wasn't getting a ton of new patients. That was about 2.5 years ago. And I'm not just going to say it's postcards, but I do know he gets a ton in off his postcards, and he has tried many different ways. Another good friend, Ryan Koenig, excuse me. Ryan Koenig, he lives in Colorado, and I think he's on his 4th or 5th startup practice, but he also utilizes Travis Russell, and that's how he gets a ton of his new patients for all of his startups. So I don't know if it's just, first to the market, or I know Justin, I thought his postcard was super weird. It's an interesting pink color. It's not a gross pink, but it's not a baby pink. It's a very, very specific pink. And I said, Schmidt, why are you doing pink postcards? Like, this looks, your oven in your house is pink. So are you just going with, he bought this old house that had a pink oven in his house. And I said, are you just trying to keep the theme going? And he said, no, I'm targeting females because they're the ones who make the decisions. And I want to come across different. I don't want blue. I don't want to look like every other dental office. I want my postcard to stand out. So he has changed his postcard up in the last 2.5 years, probably 10 times. But I will tell you, that man has so many new patients. He's buying his next building. It's insane, the influx. Yeah. And he said a lot of them come from postcards. So I would say, guys, try it out. Yep, it's that kick in the pants. You're going to have, it's a pretty hefty fee, but a lot of the postcard people, they've got a lot of good ideas. So if I hear of other people, I'll definitely add it to the show notes. But so far, Travis Russell's been the one that I've heard with the best reviews if you're wanting to go the postcard route.
Yeah, and I haven't heard of him before, but definitely, somebody that is familiar with, designing. It really doesn't have to be somebody that's familiar with dental design, but somebody that's familiar with designing a postcard that converts, and also somebody that has a mail house obviously is beneficial. There's also some really great stuff in Dental Success Network. So if you go into the marketing section in there, there's I had pulled some good information there from, actually a client sent it to me, kind of a checklist on how to mail in-house if you wanted to save money on postage and have your team bundle the postcards and send them out. So I'm sure I'm kind of speaking on deaf ears with that. A lot of dentists are probably already doing that and have a really good system for it. But there's definitely some tips in DSN on how to get your postcard mailers out without having to use a mail house.
And if you guys are not familiar with DSN, what Lauren's talking about is it's the Dental Success Network. I think it's a phenomenal place. So I don't think it's that much. So doctors, if you're not a part of it, it's kind of like Dental Google. And it's also Dental Google on steroids, drinking from a firehouse. There's so much information, but you can go to specific rooms. It's a Facebook platform basically. And you can go to these different rooms and go and check out, social media, and you can check out endo and implants and cosmetic. I think it's cosmetic with confidence. And so there's all these different rooms you can go around to and just get tips and information. There's a safe place so you can post anonymously of questions you have. And then it's great because if you're a doctor in DSN, there is also a team aspect. And so the teams, if you're not in it, there's DTSN, which is the Dental Team Success Network. And it's a similar model of Google at your fingertips for teams. So great resources for you guys. I know the social media, and there's a marketing room in DSN. So if you're not a part of it, it's a really low investment. I think it's $100, $200 a month. I'm totally making these numbers up. I really don't know, but I'm going to say it's not that much, and you should just go to it because Mark Costas, Dave Bender, Tim McNamara, Michael Lomaton. Holy cow. If you don't know Michael Lomaton, he's Katrina Agatap's husband, and holy moly, every dentist wants to be married to Michael Lomaton because he runs her business for her. So it's awesome. He's in there. He talks a lot about IT and different ways to grow businesses. They have a startup in San Diego. So just really smart people in there that I love to glean knowledge from as well. So pop in there. It's a really good resource for you as well.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, even as a marketer, it's like, you don't know everything. So it's nice to kind of hear from other marketers in a non-competitive way, what's working for them and what's not. And, ideas and kind of seeing them flesh out between, different practices that have had successes and failures and postcards or whatever that might look like. And so, I do love that it's a really positive space. And so that's why, I've been, kind of a fly on the wall in there. I don't post a ton, but I definitely go in there and steal some knowledge when I have the time to, get through the information.
And you can also post questions on there. So if you guys want to know, hey, who does everybody use for postcards, or who is everybody using for this type of implant, or where do I go to get CE on sleep apnea or Botox or whatever it is. Like, that's why I'm saying it is dental Google, but from really smart dentists. And there's only a select few people in there. So it's actually a pretty big community, but they don't let everybody in. So I think the information in there is fantastic. You can search it. So there's our plug for DSN, which we weren't even planning to do, but guys, it really is a very beneficial community that's vibrant.
Kiera, you need a coupon code from them and a commission.
Exactly. Hey, DSN, this is from the Dental Team podcast. No, I believe in giving you guys the best resources on this podcast, because how do you become the A team? You have to learn from people around you. I think that's part of it. I've been very intrigued by popping around to people that I think are brilliant. And what I find out is they just know how to network and ask people the right questions. They'll go to Lauren. Hey, Lauren, how do I do these things? And that's what I'm finding is they just have a really vibrant Rolodex, basically, of people that they know, people they interact with, to help them be the best version of themselves, because they don't know it all. They're not strong in every single facet that you need to be in business and running a practice. They just are vibrant in getting to know people and then asking questions to help them know what they don't even know.
Absolutely. I agree. I like that idea of doubling down on somebody that totally knows postcards inside and out. It's like, you can only get really good, smart ideas from that conversation. So, So guys, there's your marketing tips for today. We talked about different colors, different design. We also talked about postcards. It's a totally different avenue. Lauren, I agree. I don't really love the magazine marketing. I have seen in some, depending upon your population, this is a weird one, but I have heard of newsletters. And like, what's your take on newsletters? Because for some older populations, the newsletter is amazing. But what's your take on them? Okay, let's talk about newsletters. I like newsletters, but I also like anything with a tracking phone number. So if you're putting something in print, always put a tracking phone number on it. Of course, you guys probably already know that.
I didn't know this. I did not know that this even exists. How do you even get a tracking number? I know you should do it, but how do you do it?
Oh gosh. There's a bunch of different services out there that offer it. And it's, the thing is, you have to be kind of careful not to jump around with call tracking services. If you choose one, just choose it and stay, because if you put a postcard out, right, you print, you're doing a bunch of different runs, 10,000 postcards, and you lose that tracking phone number. You can't transfer it to another vendor. Like, those are good questions to ask when you're making those choices, because I've seen that come back to be a pain point. But yeah, for sure, there's tons, and you can absolutely get them pretty inexpensively and be able to listen to the phone calls and things like that. And so
there's even one that I just heard of. I have a client, they're using somebody in Washington, and their postcard company called their office to train their front office on how to take these phone calls when they come in. It was awesome. Yeah. I loved it.
Yep. So we do a little bit of that. We don't do the training aspect of it. I usually just refer people to Kiera for that, but
perfect. Thank you. Thanks, Lauren.
We actually do something very close to that. So we'll take the phone calls and we'll listen to each and every phone call. And then we'll kind of score how the day went, right? So they'll go, okay, 100% of your new patient calls were booked, and here's 2 or 3 sample phone calls that have a training opportunity tied to them, and then we'll send them over. So that's kind of as far as we take it. And then I say, well, if if we are listening to a bunch of bad phone calls in a row, then they just go over to you.
And here you go. And guys, if you want a phone skills and scheduling, we are having an event in Indiana in September. So phone skills scheduling, that is something that we are doing. So I have found, and I'll do mystery calls. So a lot of my clients don't know I'm calling because I want to check in and pretend to be a new patient or to be canceling on them. So a lot of my clients I'm doing that with as well. It just helps because then you can give coaching and feedback. But back to newsletters, Lauren. Tell me, like quickly, how do you feel about newsletters? Let's talk about newsletters.
Yeah, so we totally digress, but that's
okay. There you go.
Just on listening to calls and training, right? So I do love newsletters. I also love e-newsletters, and I think that's the one missing piece in a lot of practices is sending out emails. And sometimes people are doing it through their dental software, and sometimes they're doing it through like MailChimp, which is a free service, or there's Constant Contact. There's a bunch, but I think it's really important to stay connected with your clients in a personal way. And a newsletter is a perfect way to do that, to really create some personality around your practice, your employees, your team, what's happening in the community. How are you getting involved? How are you supporting and lifting up the community as a business owner, things like that. So I would absolutely make that a quarterly initiative to, be gathering content on a regular basis to, when it comes time to produce the newsletter, that you're not scrambling to put something together. You've already got content that's ready to go.
So would you do it just quarterly, or would you do it monthly? Just quarterly?
I mean, I know some offices that do it monthly. I think quarterly is absolutely appropriate. And, if it's something that you're adding new to the mix, I think quarterly is a good starting point. Okay. If you're getting a good return on it, yeah, absolutely. You can move to bi-monthly or monthly. But, I think we are all in a space where we get a lot of information thrown at us. And so it's sort of like, in my mind, if you're doing it too often, it loses its edge, right? Like, we want people to look forward to it, but also not be annoyed by it.
Sure. No, you're absolutely right. Okay.
Yeah.
So newsletter, and I do agree. It is kind of nice. I used to read one. I went to the dentist, back in college, and they would send me these really awesome ones, and the doctor wrote them. And I would read them every single time they came out because they were really interesting. And I loved how she did it. I loved her. And they weren't a call to action. They were just general information about the dental office. It was fun to see what they were working on, projects that they had been to. So I will say it does work. I read, and there are some people, but I do agree. I have two people that are marketing, and I get stinking emails from them every single week, and I hate it. I unsubscribe from them because you're right, it does have too much. So finding that balance of what your clients are doing. And also, confession, when I was an office manager, I had no clue about MailChimp. I don't know where I was. I feel like I lived in a cave because I hear about all these things and I think, where was I? But I was going to do newsletters on my own, like set it up and have to put all these things together and remember to send them out. You can automate all these emails. You can have follow-ups. You can set up an email sequencing that will just go for you. And I had no clue that existed. It's fantastic. So we are human beings. We forget. So utilize MailChimp, Constant Contact. There are a few other ones out there. Figure out what works for you, but try some of those things. See if it helps bring in patients and just giving more value than they expect.
Yeah. And I know, Kiera, I know your team uses this, and, we also encourage offices to get familiar with it too, but we use Canva. It's Canva a lot, and they have a really great templates for, current newsletters. So you could definitely pull some things, from Canva as far as inspiration and style, so that your person that's putting it together is not, struggling just with design. They're just able to kind of plug and play the information. My only trick with Canva is try to make it look like it's not Canva because it's become so popular. So if you can take something that's already templated there and tweak it enough that it's not looking like it came from a template, then, it's a home run. So
yeah, absolutely. Canva is awesome. You guys try it out. Kaylee, when I first hired her, so she doesn't listen to the podcast too much, so hopefully she doesn't hear this, but confession on Kaylee. Kaylee was terrible with design when I first hired her, and I didn't hire her for design, so I can't fault her. But I remember the first time I asked her to make me a postcard, it looked terrible. And I said, whoa, this is not my style. I'm sure for somebody it would be their style. It was not my style at all. But I will say, in just over a month, Kaylee played around in Canva. She is phenomenal. Now she knocks it out of the park. Every time I have her put something together, she makes beautiful infographics, newsletters, postcards, you name it. Kaylee can whip those things out so quick out of Canva. But if your team member struggles a smidge, it's totally cool. Everybody has saving graces. So Kaylee she is a testimonial that you can use Canva and become a rock star even when you've never done it before in your life. And you just get better and better each one you make. So once again, guys, I feel when I listen to these and I think about it and I produce this podcast, and I feel sometimes like, oh, where do I even start? And I will tell you guys, Jason, the other day we were talking and he said, Kiera, I think one of your best and worst attributes is you just execute. Whether it's right or wrong, you just execute and move forward. And he said, but yet you get a lot of things done in your life, as opposed to me, who sits back and is constantly researching and never actually starts on a lot of projects. And I've thought about this because in the book Traction, they say, make a decision. Even if it's not the right one, even if you want to like debate it out, just make a decision and move forward, because the lack of making a decision or the lack of executing on a lot of these ideas, you just stay in the same place that you were a year ago. And the other day I read a quote, and Lauren, I don't know if you've heard this one or not, but they said, don't be afraid of failure. Be afraid of being in the same spot you are today a year from now. And I loved that.
That's so good.
I loved it so much because it just hit home. And I think that's the way it is with marketing. You know, I'm realizing we're ending Q3 and we're about to fall into we're ending Q2 and falling into Q3. Like, look back right now. Where are you at with your marketing? Where are you at with your business? The time keeps ticking. That's a non-changing variable that will always continue on. But don't be afraid of failure. Don't be afraid of executing some of these ideas. Be afraid of being in the exact same spot you are today in 3 months from now, in 6 months from now, in a year from now, because progress is only made by making decisions and executing. And so those are my final thoughts. Lauren, what are your final thoughts as we wrap up today?
Totally agree. I love that. And I think there's just a fine line and a balance between, quick execution and thoughtful, intention. And so, merging those two together, I think your husband's right and you're right, but finding that blend in the middle, right, that is giving you both of those things, is really where you're going to hit your sweet spot. And in terms of, just trying things and being okay with failure, that's exactly what marketing is. So, I agree. I completely, and go for it.
Awesome, guys. All right, Lauren, as always, thank you for joining me early. The kiddos didn't wake up, so I feel like it was a success. So, and everyone, thank you so much for listening on the Dental A Team, and we'll catch you next time. And that wraps it up for another episode of the Dental A Team podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.